Okay, a very warm welcome to everybody who's joining us for today's Meraki Quarterly. Very excited to kick off January 2018. Hope you all had a really good, relaxing break. We are just about remembering what the break was like. It's so busy. We are heads down, working super hard to bring you some exciting new stuff here at Meraki. And of course, the Quarterly is all about bringing you up to date as much as we can with what we are doing here. So let's get things started, and we'll have a quick look at a couple of notes we always like to go through before we get started on this, because we know that we always have a few people joining us for the first time on the Quarterly. It's slightly different to our regular webinar program because for this one, it's really targeted at established Meraki customers and partners. What we want to do is really share information with a good starting understanding of where Meraki is at already. So it's not really suitable for people who are brand new to Meraki. Obviously, we have an extensive webinar program, so if you are new to us and what we're running through today doesn't make a lot of sense, you'd like some more context, do please go and sign up for one of our intro webinars. We have a great program which will get you some trial gear so you can try it out for yourself and get better acquainted with Meraki. But what we want to do is really bring people up to date with more recent developments on the Meraki portfolio during this session. So this event is generally presented by the product marketing team. That's the team I look after here at Meraki. And so we have some esteemed guests joining us today as well from the product management and engineering teams here at Meraki to take us through a couple of those product sections. So always great to have people joining us and helping us out on this very exciting event we do once a quarter. It's a retrospective, so we look back over what Meraki has been doing over the past quarter, and the reason we put this webinar in place in the first place is really because we know we're innovating at a very rapid pace. We have a lot of new features and capabilities, and indeed hardware updates coming quite regularly, thick and fast for our customers to keep on top of. And what we want to do is just take a moment to step back and review what it is that we've been doing over the past quarter and look at any exciting public betas that we have opening up, so maybe new features that you might like to try out before they become fully baked and ready for the general public. So I do want to emphasize this is a roadmap-free zone. During the Meraki Quarterly, we reserve the right to ignore any questions that you may choose to ask about future developments, exciting new features and products from Meraki. It's a rolling story, and it serves us best to be looking back at the last quarter and making sure everybody is fully up to date with that. I can guarantee you there will always be something new for us to talk about next quarter as well. Without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Paul Wolf, who is going to take us through an update to Meraki Systems Manager.
All right. Thank you for that, Simon. So my name is Paul Wolf, as Simon said, and I'm one of the people from the engineering team here to talk to you. So to start things off for Systems Manager, what we kind of like to do is set the playing field, because generally when you talk about mobile device management or enterprise mobility management and all these things, you have a lot of acronyms to kind of parse through to get through and figure out what they mean. So just to set the playing field here, the product that we're talking about is Unified Endpoint Management. And what this is it's a combination of different mobile management technologies and solutions. So it combines everything from enterprise mobility management to mobile device management, mobile application management, content management, all of these things. And mostly what Unified Endpoint Management means is that it's not only just for mobile devices like your traditional ones like iOS and Android and Windows Mobile, but it's also for Windows, Microsoft Server, for your Mac computers. So you can essentially monitor and manage everything from your iPhones and your iPads and Android tablets to your Windows servers, Surface Books, MacBooks, MacBook Pros, and everything like that. So really exciting solution for us to have in-house, customer favorite across the whole Cisco portfolio, if I can say so myself. So there's a couple things I want to talk to you about. And the first one is extremely exciting. And if you've been following us, you've actually heard us talk about this a couple times because of how excited we are about it. And I'm really, really excited to finally talk about this and saying that it's available now. It is launched. It's out there in the open. I'll go over to a web browser in a second and show you how much people have actually been talking about this. There's been a ton of write-ups about it. The media is really loving it. Customers really loving it. But before I quickly show you those, just to recap on what this is, it's Cisco Security Connector. And it's basically, it makes it so that there's a way to get even more visibility, control, and privacy on your supervised iOS devices. So I'll say that again. So this is only for iOS. The devices have to be supervised. However, if you're in that scenario, you get this heightened level of security and visibility all the way down to what apps were doing things when we access this website, or when you hit this different endpoint that's in the internet, which apps were active and in the background and in the foreground, and just these really cool levels of different visibility and control on iOS. So to quickly show you kind of the reaction for that, I just actually want to Google Cisco Security Connector, and then you can really see how much the media has been talking about this. You get everything from our Cisco website hosting it, to microsites, blogs. You see us talking about it. You see a lot of different people on different websites getting excited about this, talking about the app. You even have our documentation on it. And it's just been really cool to see something we worked so hard on get such a response from the industry, from everyone from writers and journalists to customers. So I highly recommend, if you have iOS devices, to check that out. And so the other thing that I wanted to show you today is our all-new apps page. And if you've been following the apps page, you've seen that we've done a ton to remake this. So we've added things like you can now actually access. You can upload custom Android apps. We added not only custom Mac apps, but we actually have Mac App Store inclusion into this, and all kinds of things, better tag management, better processes, ways to refresh data. And the main thing I want to show you from this is we've been doing so many things here that we actually added this what's new at the top of the specific MDM apps page. So if you click on this, we actually show you, hey, welcome, you're here. We'll tell you a little bit about why we did this page, what we're bringing, and then we'll show you the latest few things on this page. So I won't spoil them all right here, but if you have Systems Manager, you want to start a trial, you can come to this, see what's new, click through a few of these, and we will be updating what's new on there. So lots of exciting things happening. Just in case this is the first time you've seen the apps page, this allows you to install iOS apps, Android apps, Mac, and Windows apps across your entire fleet of devices. So with that, I'm going to now kick it off to my good friend June. June, you're up.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the MC portion of the Meraki webinar. I wanted to start today with a quick recap of some wishes that we've been seeing here on the MC team. And as many of you know, wishes are a great way for any dashboard user to really establish a line of communication directly with the Meraki product and engineering teams. And therefore, they're a great way to get your feature requests heard, as well as to talk specifically about a use case that you guys might have in your company or your school or your deployment in general. For example, we've had a couple wishes come through recently, and the first one of which said, I'm requesting local contacts per MC74 device. My CEO would love to have board members in his directory, but my other users don't need or want those numbers. If that could be added by the end user, that would be ideal. It's a great wish, has a specific use case in there that we might not be as familiar with, and this was something that I at least really appreciated hearing about from our customers. Second wish that I wanted to talk about was this customer would like to be able to change ringtones to a different sound so desks close to each other can better identify which is ringing. And I call out these quotes, or wishes, specifically because they are not one-off requests, but actually representative of hundreds of wishes that we've seen regarding these subjects. And that's why we actually have a new MC beta firmware available right now for you. Woo! And this is awesome, right? We have this available in beta right now, which means that if you are ticking the box on dashboard that says try beta firmware, you have actually already uploaded this downloaded this, and you should be able to use it right away. Or you can call into Meraki support and ask specifically to get upgraded to this new beta version. And we also have a projected general availability by January 29th. So that means if you guys have some kind of rule where you can't try beta firmware, you have to put it in a test bed, it should be available for everybody, and it should become the standard firmware by January 29th. And this is super exciting, and you might be asking yourselves, what is actually included in this? First things first, the MC74 will have an updated ability for each phone to have a personal directory filled with personal contacts that only that user can see. Therefore, if you want to have your significant other or maybe your kid's school on speed dial, you won't actually have to share that number with the rest of the company like you do today. Additionally, these will be displayed just like normal contacts in your directory, and you can set them as favorites if you want them within even closer reach. And the best part about all of this is that the user can do it completely by themselves. So an IT professional doesn't have to come in and worry about managing, hundreds of people's directories and personal phone numbers. If you want it, you can just set it on your phone. There's a little plus sign right on the screen. You press it, you see the screen, you enter the numbers, and it's right on your phone. The second cool feature that I wanted to talk about is custom ringtones on each MC74. So you can access this menu within Settings and then Ringtone Selection, and then you can listen to all these different tones and pick out the ones that stand out to you. I personally actually have already set Fast Pigeon on as my ringtone. I can't exactly tell you where these names came from. Our sound engineer has a very creative way of naming his sounds, but there are some really cool ones. I really enjoy them, and it's a fun way to differentiate yourselves and make sure that, if you're away from your desk and you have a bunch of phones all in a group, you'll be able to know right away if your phone is the one that's ringing. All right, so that's not all. We also have a bunch of under the hood improvements in this new firmware update. Your standard performance and security improvements. We've really tried to optimize the Bluetooth pairing experience and the USB headset experience on this new update. There's a whole suite of dashboard UI improvements, as well as new dashboard API endpoints for MC. So if you guys are leveraging the dashboard API at all for MC, you have more access now. You can read about those in our API docs. We also have support for the Opus codec, as well as additional language support. Although I do still want to clarify, we are currently focused on selling in the US and Canada. So if you speak a different language within the US or Canada, which a lot of people do, you'll now be able to use any of these languages on your MC74. Thank you guys so much. I'm actually going to pass it off now to Meraki security cameras with my colleague, George.
Hello everyone, I'm not sure where Simon gets his photos from. He's always trying to find a new interesting one to represent me, but I'm George Benting. I am the product manager for the Meraki camera portfolio. So one of the small things that we've updated over the last couple of months is the video wall. So the video wall is where you can create tiles of different camera layouts, and then you can arrange your videos in the ways that you want. And this is quite a dynamic interface. So one of the things that's quite cool to do is if you have an incident, say someone steals your bicycle, for example, you can quickly create a video wall, use it to put together the cameras from the angles that you want, and then review all that footage together in one go. The downside was it was really hard to sort of create these very quickly when you started to get lots of cameras or when you had lots of different layouts. So we've improved that with some video wall creation tools. You can now search for cameras within your camera pool, so you don't just have to go through the thumbnails. This is great if you're sort of exceeding the 100 camera count in a particular Meraki network. And you can now reorder the layout for the video wall. So previously you had to have it in the layout that you created in, which can be a bit of a nuisance when you start ending up changing your ideas later on down the road. You'd have to go delete your video wall and create another one and then just add on the end. So if you want to use those are all in production now. You can go to the video wall page. If you hover over the tabs, you'll see a little sort of couple of dashes to the left-hand side of your tab. You can grab it, pick it up, and move it over and put it somewhere else. Now, my next slide I am pretty pleased with, primarily because I did not speak to June about her content at all, and I had no idea what she was going to present, yet it's on exactly the same topic of wishes. And so what I like to sort of reinforce here is how seriously we really take it. It's not a fun little thing at the bottom. It's not a joke. It really is a very convenient way for us to keep our finger on the pulse of what you and everyone else out there using Meraki products really wants. And I can tell you honestly, for the MV team at least, we read every single wish, and you're probably going to have your wish read the day that you wish for it. It all comes into a chat channel. All the engineers, the product team, the product marketing team for MV look at that, and we see all the wishes. And one of the wishes that we see super regularly is this idea of speed. Everyone wants to go faster. Faster is the thing. No one wants to watch hours of boring video. And so you can see here, these are the raw wishes as input by you, the users of Dashboard. No formatting changes, so we've got some capitals missing and so on. And we also get the odd sort of random wish. I'm not sure how we can make this guy richer, but if there's a chance, we will try and do our best to honor that wish. But for something slightly more attainable, let's look at the faster thing. Now, one of the things that's interesting here is that we have this, and yet all of these wishes have been made since we had this. And what this reinforces is the fact that we haven't done enough to make this type of functionality discoverable. So what do I mean by that? Well, we have a number of keyboard shortcuts. So if you have an MV camera and you haven't tried these make it much easier to rapidly move between different pieces of video on that camera you're interested in. So the spacebar toggles play and pause. When it's paused, you can tap the arrow keys left and right to move frames. So say you've got that bike thief coming in your door and you've got the camera looking at it and you want to get that clear snapshot of their face, well, you can use the arrow keys to sort of tap forward or tap back to exactly when you've got the best angle of them walking in, and then you press the screenshot button in the top right corner of Dashboard when you're looking at it. Now, if you hold those, you can sort of fast forward and play backwards using the arrow keys. And if you want to get that speed, we saw so much demand for speed in the wishes, then you have three options. If you press the number 1 key, you get 1 times playback. Not super exciting. 2 times playback is the number 2 key. 3 times playback is the number 3 key. Now, there are some things to just be aware of when you're using the faster playback speeds, which are you are going to be using data faster. Seems obvious, but what does that mean? These controls work on an individual camera, and they also work on a video wall. So if you get a video wall and you press 3 times playback and it has 12 cameras, you've just tripled the bandwidth consumption of those 12 cameras. So if you're accessing this remotely and you're not sure of your uplink bandwidth, it could be quite easy for you to saturate a small internet connection by hitting the 3 times playback speed on a 12 camera video feed, and you're going to be sort of pumping like 15 megaseconds or something. So just be cautious with how easily you can speed up the consumption of bandwidth. The other thing to just be aware of is when you speed up the playback speed, it reduces the number of concurrent video streams the camera can stream. So if you press 3 times playback, it's the equivalent of 3 people watching the camera at 1 times playback. So you can't have lots of people all looking at the same camera and pressing 3 times playback speed. Unfortunately, that's a little hard for the camera to cope with. But please do go play with those features, test them out. If you have any comments, please make a wish. We really do read them. Okay, so moving on. Now, I went through this on my previous quarterly updates back at the end of Cisco's financial year last year, and it's still important today. And I really don't want to gloss over the importance of security, especially digital security, when applied to physical security devices such as cameras. We've seen and heard all of this news around Spectre and Meltdown, and this isn't in relation to that, but just the general importance of securing the systems that we use to protect ourselves and to run our businesses or our lives is critically important. And with MV, we really have taken, like, I believe, a step beyond every other camera vendor in the industry. And that's because it's just what we think we should do. We're not a camera company first, we're sort of a cloud and software development company first. And so the things that we take for granted, which we just wouldn't build a product without, such as encrypted management data, where there's no way to talk to the camera to manage it or upgrade the firmware unencrypted, It's just sort of the default way of operating for a lot of camera systems out there. Now, the one piece that I want to focus on today, because as I said, I have run through this before, is the data encryption during transport, because we do something really unique here. Now, before I dig into that, we've got on the left-hand side, data at rest. So if you're unfamiliar, all the data on the camera is encrypted using AES-256-bit. The thing is, this is zero config. You turn on your camera, and the first time you turn it on, you need to wait 15 minutes for it to start recording while it encrypts the storage volume. After that, it's done. You don't need to manage the keys. We back up the keys for you in dashboard. Your camera is encrypted, and you can't choose to have an unencrypted camera. It's not an option. It's there by default, and it's transparent. The management data you should hopefully be familiar with for all Meraki products, so let's drill down on this encrypted data during transport. It's not possible to have unencrypted video transmitted from your camera to you. So how do we go about doing that? Well, I first want to start about how other people go about doing that, and that is really poorly. So we're looking at, I'm going to say, quote, industry standard camera from another vendor, which by default does not come with HTTPS. It uses HTTP, you can just sort of go to the IP address and you can start streaming video. Should you want it to be more secure, you can go in and you can create a certificate and do a self-signed one and all that good stuff, which really is insecure. And you know what? Chrome has a really bad time with that. It's getting more and more difficult to have a poorly implemented HTTPS setup without the browser throwing hissy fit and getting super upset. So here it's telling me this is not a good idea. Do I want to go ahead with it? And when you dig into the details, and I do ask that you try and do this. You can have a look at this when you're looking at your Meraki cameras. If you go and inspect, and then you look at the security and then certificate part of this page, you can see that this is a certificate that has no trusted certificate authority. It doesn't use appropriate ciphers. It doesn't use appropriate hashing protocols. This is just doing security badly. So how do we do it with the Meraki cameras? Well, when you're streaming video from the camera and you're streaming video through the cloud, so that's when it's a cloud proxy, that's when you're remote from the camera, you're not on site, we just do it over HTTPS through the Meraki cloud. But when you're local, we don't want to have to go through the cloud because it's going to take up bandwidth. So we need to stream it to you. But the video is being displayed in dashboard, and dashboard is a page rendered from the cloud. So we need to make sure we have a very strong setup so we don't have mixed content. We don't have this low quality encryption or no encryption when you're local and then the high quality encryption for the Meraki dashboard. And so how do you do it? Well, what we have to do is we have to buy a certificate for every camera. So we automatically provision TLS certificates for every camera, and the first time a camera boots, it will go to the Meraki cloud and we buy it a certificate from a global certificate authority using an API. And that cost is completely included in your license. You never have to do anything. You don't have to see it. You don't have to configure anything. This is not an option for you to turn off. And when that certificate expires and needs to be renewed, that's automatically included, managed by the Meraki dashboard, and there is zero administrative overhead. So you have a unique per camera, globally verified certificate that is trusted by all browsers as it has a full trust chain. And so when you go look at it, and you go look at the details, you end up with this much more pleasing page. We've got all the green on the right-hand side, valid certificate. This has strong protocols, and it's implemented correctly. And the real detail here is on the left-hand side. You see where it's got the certificate information. It said issued to, and we buy a wildcard certificate for each camera. So it's star dot the camera's MAC addresses dot devices dot Meraki dot direct. And this allows us to build this very clever implementation where you get encrypted content remotely or locally with no browser plugins, no changes, no having to add insecure certificate authorities. It's globally trusted like any other major web page on the internet. So really wanted to focus in on that bit there. That's quite a technical deep dive. If you have any more questions, please give us a call and go talk to one of our systems engineers. And with that, I'm now going to hand over to James.
Hello, everyone. My name is James, and I am the product marketing manager here for switches at Cisco Meraki. So we're just going to go ahead and get started with an end of sale announcement for the MS220-8. We will be ending the sale of this product on April 28th, and will continue support for the product for 7 years thereafter. But importantly, we have the replacement, and our replacement is the MS120-8, which is an 8-port switch. And this is one of our compact switches, and it's particularly important because with the integrated mounting plates, you can really put it just about anywhere. It comes in 3 models: a non-PoE, a 67-watt LP version, which is a new version, as well as a 124-watt FP model. And now we have its big brother, the MS120, and this has a higher port count with 24 and 48 ports available. The most important thing about both this switch as well as the prior switch is that they both feature virtual stacking, which allows you to connect the switch to the Meraki dashboard and then configure and manage each individual switch port as if they were all physically connected. And that's just one of the amazing innovations here that we have that make working with Meraki that much easier. Next, we have the MS210, which is our 1 gig stackable switch. This again features 24 and 48 ports so that you can hook everything you need to it. And probably the most important thing that we should mention is that in addition to this being a 1 gig stackable switch, you can also link the MS210 with its big brother to the MS225 to take advantage of its 10 gig SFP plus uplink. So for whatever reason, if you wanted to connect them together, and that gives you really the best bang for your buck in terms of power, performance at a lower price point. And moving over to features, we have staged upgrades. So within a network, stage upgrades allow you to identify a subset of switches and schedule them to be upgraded at specific times. So this introduces more flexibility into how you schedule updates. And if for whatever reason you needed to roll back updates, you can go ahead and do that and then try again later. Next, we have our Layer 3 topology view. Now, similar to our Layer 2 topology view, which shows how devices are physically connected, our Layer 3 topology view shows how devices are logically connected. So you can actually go in and visually see how the interfaces, VLANs, and subnets are all connected together that actually make up your network. And as the final slide for switches, this is our entire line. So going from left to right, we have again our MS120-8, which is our compact switch. And then to the right, its big brother, the MS120, which is designed for small branch and small home and office. Over to the center, we have the MS210, which is designed for to be a 1 gig stackable switch and designed for branches and small campuses. The MS210 can stack with the MS225 to take advantage of its 10 gig SFP uplink, SFP plus uplink. And all the way over to the right, we have our true Layer 3 switches, which is the MS250, which again features a 10 gig SFP plus uplink. And all the way over to the right, we have really our flagship switch, which is the MS350, which comes in a variety of models, but definitely features one of the coolest features that I think that is present in the entire switch line. We have multi-gigabit support, as well as PoE, PoE Plus, and UPoE support on that model. So with that, if you have any more questions, you can reach out to your Meraki rep for a demo of a particular product or feature, or you can join me for one of our switch presentations. So we are going to pass it off next to Emily.
All right, guys, we'll get started in just a second. We're still trying to troubleshoot a little bit of the feedback noise y'all are hearing. Give us 1 sec. All right. I'm not sure if folks heard the slide before. They did? Okay, cool. So the other thing that we have, hopefully you guys heard about the mount kits, but if not, go to our website and you'll find them. But we also have new accessories for the MR30H. Now, these have been heavily requested by many of you who have bought MR30Hs. What we have a surface mount kit, which is basically if you need installations, or if you have installations, where you have additional cabling outlets, and you're using the same wall plate used by an MR30H access point, and you want something more aesthetically pleasing, this particular kit will have a keystone port. So if you, for example, have other types of cables, not Ethernet, maybe like a telephone cable or something of that sort, and you want to run it through using the same wall plate, you can do that aesthetically with this surface mount kit that clips on behind the MR30H. And the other accessory that we have is a port security mount kit. So this is basically designed to help you lock down your switch ports on the MR30H and prevent tampering with those in sort of a secure way. Now, I know if you've been hanging with us for the last couple of quarterlies, you've seen this slide before, and I keep promising that awesome stuff is coming on the wireless front. Well, I'm ready to commit on this. This sort of holiday Christmas will happen towards the end of January, so stay tuned. That's what I got. All right, and now I'm going to hand it back over to our illustrious Simon.
Well, thank you very much, Emily. I do apologize to everybody for the shenanigans going on this morning. We are definitely, I think we have such a large number of people joining us today. It's a little challenging from the technology front, getting, let's see, well over 1,000 people who are joining us on the quarterly. We're really delighted to have you here. Thanks for bearing with us as we try to get those audio issues worked out. I think we're in good shape now, so we'll get things rolled towards a conclusion. This is the final product update, and then we'll take a little bit of time to look at some of the questions that have come in. So on the MX side, the really big news on the MX platform over the past quarter is really the introduction of a new version of our firmware code. We call it Wired 13, and that's reached general availability towards the end of the year. And this is really a big step forward for the MX team. A lot of these features were in beta state for quite a long time, and what we're really proud of is to have finally taken those right over the finish line and have these fully baked and available to all of our customers. Let's just have a review of a couple of the features that we've got in here, because there are some pretty big hitters. For example, Layer 7 SD-WAN, that is a really exciting new capability. It means that we can now set up priority choices for multiple wide area network links based on an application name. So we don't now need to worry about knowing what port number we're using for a particular application, its source and destination IP address. We can literally just do this using a friendly host name and choosing what kind of priority we want to give to that specific application. So of course, the whole point of SD-WAN is to ensure that we are using the connections we have available to us as efficiently as possible, and certainly ensuring that more latency sensitive applications get the priority and behavior that they really need. We also now have full threat grid built in here. So this is the ability to be able to run sandboxed files that we may consider to contain malicious content, and to ensure that those are good. There's actually a screenshot over on the right there showing one of the threat grid incident reports that comes in on the security center. So that's just a couple of the features that we've got in there. You can see as you look down the list here, we've also got over 100 security fixes. You know, technology vendors talk about this stuff all the time. We see this on our iPhones every time we get an update. And it's, of course, a little bit vague, but some of these are very small things, but they are important. They are all building towards the more robust nature of our security appliance. This is a product which we've now been selling for over 6 years. And so we have considerable experience in this space, and the scope of this product is still continuing to grow. So we're adding more and more functionality. Let's just have a look at a couple of the new public betas that we've announced for the MX platform. And the way this works, if you haven't tried public beta before, if you see features that you like the sound of and you want to give them a try in your own network or maybe in a lab situation, all you need to do is reach out to Meraki support. They can turn those on for you and get them enabled so that you can start working with those. So a couple of features on the MX now into public beta are PIM sparse mode, so multicast technology, and being able to extend that over an auto VPN link. This is really good news for people who do use multicast, and it's quite common in large corporations where you're wanting to use your data flows as efficiently as possible. Let's say you're broadcasting video from one source to many recipients. Multicast is going to help you reduce the number of individual unicast flows of that audio or video stream. So being able to extend that across AutoVPN, which means we can now go out to branch locations as well, that's quite a significant step forward for companies that are using this technology. And of course, Meraki's AutoVPN enables us to connect many different branch sites together to our headquarters so that we can benefit from those kind of efficiencies. The other one is a slightly more specific use case. Certainly do see some customers requesting this, and that is something called no-NAT. It simply means that rather than the default setup where the MX is designed to do network address translation from its public IP address to its private local area network, we'd simply remove that capability so that the box starts to behave a little bit more like a traditional router. So now we have layer 3 interfaces right across the box, and that sometimes makes it easier to share services. If you are wanting to run a lot of in-house websites and other kinds of services, you can more easily get those accessible from the outside world by using a technology like this. So a couple of really practically useful features there that you can now reach out to support and get turned on in your own environment if you so wish. One more thing I want to talk about today on the security side of things, and while we're talking about security, is the recent announcement I'm sure everybody on the call has heard about, the Meltdown and Spectre vulnerabilities that were announced very broadly in the press last week. I put up a blog post about this last night, so you can go and read a little bit more detail there, and there's plenty more links that you can click on and get further and further into the detail to the level that you wish. But the really pertinent facts that I want to share with you all, the headlines if you like, are that our engineers have done a thorough assessment of both the hardware devices and the back-end cloud infrastructure that we run here at Meraki. And we've established that because the Meraki hardware is running as a closed system, it is not vulnerable to this kind of attack. So obviously very good news there, very reassuring for our customers. Also the cloud infrastructure, this is also a closed system, and it's also hosted in a private cloud environment, not shared with any other customers of those cloud environments, and so also not vulnerable to this particular set of vulnerabilities. The one area where we might want to pay a little bit more attention is around virtual machines. So Meraki has currently, hopefully I'm remembering this correctly, 3 virtual machines available to the public at this point in time, a virtual concentrator for MX, also 2 VMX instances. So we can run VMX either in Microsoft Azure or in Amazon Web Services Cloud, and obviously these are third-party hosts typically. If you're running on a VM, you're going to be either looking after a server yourself that VM is sitting on, or you're going to be relying on a third party like Amazon or Microsoft to provide you an environment to run that virtual machine. We need to just be diligent and make sure that any host operating systems are patched to ensure that we are not vulnerable to these vulnerabilities. Now, in the case of both Amazon and Microsoft, they have gone ahead and done that, and I have links to their own publications around this on the blog post I put up last night. But obviously, if you are running anything like this in your own lab setup or in your own production environment, I definitely would encourage you to just make sure that you are fully patched and up to date on the host operating system you're running. Now, since we're talking about MX in this section, I do also want to just remind you that customers who are running our advanced security license on MX do benefit from a highly elevated level of security protection. That's because we work very closely with Cisco's Talos organization, who really are the absolute world leaders in terms of security awareness and vulnerability testing. They are able to and have created snort signatures which have already been pushed out to all Meraki customers with this license, running either balanced or security settings in their MX setup, and they will then be able to identify exploit attempts of these vulnerabilities that occur over a network. So very important points there, and it's of course a lot of information. So I definitely would encourage you, if you have concerns around this, do go and have a look at that blog post. As I said, it's fairly lightweight, the blog post, that's intentional, but it does contain links where you can dive deeper and get closer to the real technical detail. Okay, so we have reached the end of the content for today's Meraki Quarterly. Thank you very much indeed for bearing with us whilst we worked through our little challenges here and there, but we seem to be in pretty good shape now. I just wanted to quickly do a plug for the Meraki community. After we finish the webinar, of course, it's often the case people have a lot of questions. We struggle to get through all of them during the quarterly. But the great news is we now have a nice, healthy running Meraki community online where you can go and sign up and you can continue the conversation. You can ask questions in there. We've got Merakians fielding that all of the time so that we can try and stay on top of any questions that come in. And of course, you can also help each other with your own knowledge and experience of running Meraki gear. We're really keen for that to happen. So do please log on. If you haven't set yourself up in there, it takes just a couple of moments to get yourself an account, and then you can start joining truly the Meraki community that way. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is open up my Q&A panel here on my WebEx tool, which has just about hung on with the very large number of people who've joined us on the webinar today. And what I'm going to do is just scroll down the list here and have a look at some of the questions that have come in. So just bear with me a second. We have some very interesting comments here about the temperature in Argentina and the coffee. It's always great to see these off-cuff remarks coming in. So a very interesting question came in around Systems Manager, asking about whether we have Systems Manager is able to do anything to help us with some of the other types of technology that we see coming along. Obviously, we talk about iOS and Android and so on and so on. But I just wonder if perhaps, Paul, can you help us out with that? If we have anything that we're thinking about on that?
Yeah, and it seems like the question's a little open-ended, talking about Apple Watches and other wearable tech. So I'll say a couple things in those different areas. One, the main one that you want to do in the iOS world is set restrictions if you want to do something like maybe disallow pairing for peripherals like Apple Watch. And that's actually the one that we hear about more often than not. And that's something that we do support in-house. And if you're in the Android gadget and tech world with wearables, a really cool thing that you can do with the Systems Manager app is you can actually, on things like even Google Glass we've seen customers do, and with specific Android watches, you can actually sideload APKs. So an APK is basically a standalone custom Android application. So what you can do is you can sideload the Systems Manager app onto it, and then you can actually enroll that device and do some of the things depending on what that wearable supports. So not all wearables have all of the MDM APIs. Whichever ones are supported, you can actually use. So great question. A couple really cool use cases there.
Thanks very much, Paul. All right, we had a question here about IPv6. IPv6 is a journey that Meraki is definitely on. We do take this seriously. We know Meraki is certainly pushing into parts of the world where IPv6 is a lot more prevalent than it is here in the United States. So our engineers have that on their consideration map in front of them. Notice I said consideration map rather than roadmap. We have already built in some IPv6 features, so we can already pass IPv6 traffic and host IPv6 addresses on devices themselves. So there is still more to do with IPv6, so do bear with us there. If you do have a specific use case for IPv6, that definitely helps us to know that. So if you have a big customer who's looking to shift to IPv6, I definitely would encourage you to reach out to your Meraki rep or any of your Meraki contacts to share that information with us. It does help us to know that and to understand the use cases that we're actually seeing the demand for. So I had a question about the MS-120-8 and whether there is any kind of a mounting solution for that beyond simply placing it down on the desk. James, can you help us out with that one?
Hello. So we have an integrated mounting solution for the MS-120-8. However, looking at it, this appeared to have been a very popular question to make the switch rack mountable. I believe I counted no fewer than 4, possibly 5. So this will be something that I will report to our switch team because this is rather new to us, and this is exactly what we want to see. But that being said, I would like to second my colleagues here who suggested putting new features into the wish fulfillment area of the site. We definitely want to hear what you think. So this would be something that if you have an idea of a future product or feature that you would like to add, go ahead and put it there, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, James. See what happens. We actually got some feedback here, and obviously our product marketing manager can take that back to the product team here. So it really does work. Just moving on down the list here, there was another question on switches around stacking of 210 and 225. So the good news is that that is one of the clear things that we thought about very carefully when we introduced MS210. We wanted to keep the price down as best as we can with that particular switch model. But if you do want to be able to create a stackable solution with an upstream layer 3 link, 225 can do that for you, and you can create that stack mostly with 210s with just a 225 for the uplink portion. So that is obviously something that was in our consideration as we went through this. We had a question about whether we support OSPF. Yes, absolutely we do. We have OSPF support right across the switching product line. Also on the MX platform, you'll also find that obviously very popular routing protocol there. Great question here around what kind of information we can provide on the dashboard to help with performance of devices. So things like utilization, any kind of anomaly detection, that sort of thing. These are recent features that we've introduced on the dashboard. So if you haven't been in for a while and poked around, definitely think about doing so because these kind of features are very important to us. We're trying over time to continually provide features that IT administrators can use to just get that experience a little bit better for the end users. Yeah, so there was a question here about bulletin on Meltdown Inspector. Again, I would reference you to go and have a look at our blog post. If you're not familiar with our blog, definitely worth subscribing to that. It's a good way to keep up to date in between these kind of sessions. Go to meraki.cisco.com/blog. And there's a subscribe button right there, which will mean you will then get the updates straight into your inbox. No need for you to go and manually check the blog. And so the post I put up about Spectre and Meltdown is going to provide you with all the detail you need, either right there in the post or with the links that are included in that post. So again, for more detail on those, which we know are of concern to everybody, do please go and have a look at that. So quick systems manager question here, just asking if we still have control of devices after they're off the network. So, Paul, could you just help us out with that one quick?
Yeah, this is an excellent question, and it's a good point for us to clarify. So the great thing about the cloud model and how Systems Manager works as a mobile device management, enterprise mobility management solution is that the end devices themselves, so all of your mobile devices and everything that you're protecting, they actually securely talk directly to the Meraki cloud. So we can still protect those devices. You can still get the right restrictions and monitoring that you need, whether they're on a managed network or off. So even if they're checking in over 3G, 4G, something like that, Systems Manager is still working on those devices. In a great use case that we have, we support cellular data management, so you can even track cellular data usage and decide if devices can roam and do some cool stuff like that. So yeah, great question. Keep those coming.
Thanks again, Paul. Okay, so as far as switch questions are concerned, we have one here about BGP. BGP really is not a protocol we expect to be sort of rolling to switches in the immediate future. It is a protocol generally used, almost exclusively used for wide area network purposes, and so really the MX platform is the place for BGP. If you do want to deploy that and use it yourself over your maybe private wide area network circuits, then you can sign up for a beta that we have in play right now for the MX and BGP technology running on that. So interesting one I just want to pay lip service to. This came up at CES. I think it's happening right now in Vegas. Earlier this week, we had an announcement around WPA3 for wireless. So brand new technology. Obviously, as I said, right at the top and right the way throughout this is not a roadmap session, but I just want you to know that we've heard that, we're aware of it, and our engineers are already looking at that technology. So stay tuned. Obviously, we update you as soon as we possibly can with that kind of thing. All right, it looks like we're pretty much there as far as questions. I think we've covered all the main ones that have come in up to this point, so I think it's time to move things to a conclusion. I would like to thank you all very much indeed again for joining us on this quarterly webinar. It is by far the most successful webinar that we run here at Meraki, so we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and spend with us once a calendar quarter. So you can guarantee that we will be back early in April. We have a product launch coming up pretty soon, and so there's going to be a lot of new excitement from Meraki. Definitely recommend you stay tuned over the next few weeks, and we'll be back to give you plenty more detail on that in the quarterly right at the beginning of April. So from all of us here on the team, we'd like to say thank you once again. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we very much look forward to welcoming you back next time. Cheers. Bye-bye for now.